I made a Goon Squad for Strahd, and here's how I did it. Spoiler warning for the Curse of Strahd module from Wizards of the Coast. So I've been a DM for a while now, and one of my more recent campaigns has been Curse of Strahd. It's probably one of the better written WotC adventure books, but it certainly has a lot to be desired in certain areas. It's honestly no wonder they released a follow-up add-on book to flesh it all out. There's a lot here in Barovia, and the adventure doesn't cover nearly enough in my opinion. One of the places I feel it suffers from, however, is the actual vampire encounters. Played vanilla, they're awfully bland, which is an absolute travesty considering the module is supposed to be all about vampires. Let's check out the big surprise in the Coffin Maker's shop for an example. They really did just stuff 3 generic vampire spawn in boxes and call it a day, didn't they? A little creative roleplay can salvage the situation, but the actual combat encounter just isn't interesting at all. The vampire spawn stat block is ultimately a bit of a one-trick pony. They're hard to kill thanks to their passive regeneration, and they can regenerate their health if they grab and bite you. This makes them sound like a bit of a pain to deal with, but in reality, I just found this more a point of frustration for players. It makes them incredibly resistant at lower level play, and all it does at higher level play is just drag out a fight. They don't do enough damage, and there's not an awful lot of strategy to play with. The Coffin Maker's shop isn't the only time the stat block appears by itself either. It happens a lot through the adventure, so I decided to give Strahd's vampire spawn more personality and a more varied role on the combat field. The book makes a point to suggest that the vampire spawn are the remnants of adventuring parties that have come before the players, and these adventurers have ultimately failed in their quest and fallen to Strahd, so it only makes sense that these vampires have a few tricks up their sleeve. The module doesn't do this at all, so I guess we just have to do Wizards' job for them. Taking this as inspiration, I threw out the vampire spawn stat block and replaced each of these guys with a custom character. This marked the inception for what I later dubbed Strahd's Goon Squad. The idea was for each vampire encounter to be dripping with personality. Vampires are the big baddie of Curse of Strahd, so it only feels right that they should be given their time in the sun. Though not literally, that will kill them. For each of the vampire spawn, I ran through 5e's player character creation and made a level 6 to a level 10 character, depending on how experienced the players were through the adventure. I took the vampire spawn's health as a baseline, and then adjusted it up and down a bit. I slapped on the nasty regeneration feature, vampire weaknesses, and the vampire spawn's bite and claw attacks, and called it a job well done. Because each of the vampires have the arsenal of the average player character at their disposal, they're much more of a threat in combat. They have a varied toolkit, and much more importantly, they can support each other in a combat properly rather than just being a combined health pool for the players to chip away at. When designing a challenging combat encounter, you should really think about the combatants you're bringing to the table. You're designing a team here. Each of the pieces you should bring should have a role to fill in that team, and they should all be able to cover each of their weaknesses. Classic RPGs have healers, they have tanks, and DPS and support characters, and the players will likely have built their characters with these principles in mind. When designing Strahd's goons, you should do the same. Make these vampires a team, and then they will be a force to be reckoned with. Player versus player is actually a reasonably rare occurrence at the table, at least in my games it is. So it gives the players an opportunity to experience something a bit new. Besides, the concept of an anti-adventurer party is probably quite intriguing to some people. It also lets the min-max player at the table really stretch their capabilities against other clever player character builds rather than just the same old monsters all the time. You can take this idea further by equipping the vampire spawn with a variety of magic weapons and items, which you can then use as loot for the players when they successfully eliminate your creations. It'll also let the players experience being on the receiving end of some of these rather powerful magic items for a change. Even if you do just this, you'll have created a more memorable fight than 3 vampires spawn in a box. 3 vamp in a boxes, I guess? Besides, hey, you, Mr. Forever DM. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Talking to you directly. I know you have a stack of those unused player character sheets on your table. Don't let them just gather dust. Use them as bad guys. The fun doesn't stop here though. While Strahd's goons now have a bit more life to them, we can certainly do a bit better. When playing, I actually took inspiration from Shadow of Mordor's Nemesis system. If you haven't played this game, one of the signature mechanics is these unique orc warlords which spawn across the map. Each of these guys have differing personalities and also voice lines. They also have a variety of combat styles and weaknesses. The thing that makes the Nemesis system so special, however, is that each of these orcs will level up, they will change, and they will grow with each encounter the player has with them. Shoot them with an arrow, they'll remember that. Drop a nest of bees on them, they might just come back with a phobia of bees. The list goes on. So to serve my purposes, I decided to implement my own rules for this, which tried to mimic this, called the Villainous Counter.
Sorry to disappoint you, Yugi. Huh? You triggered my trap card!
Each time our vampire spawn survives an encounter with the players, they'll learn more about them. Make sure to make a note of the player's tactics and what happens during the fight. Then develop a countermeasure that the vampire spawn can use to deal with this strategy. I'd suggest making it a unique reaction to deploy when the players use the same tactic again. This forces the players to adapt on the fly. They can't deal with the same enemy the same way twice, and it allows your players to build up a rapport with their rivals. The next time they appear, the players will hopefully be excited and eager to get a bit of payback. To give a few more examples of villainous counters, one member of the Goon Squad I made, Ranger, was able to remain hidden through an entire fight with the players, so I gave them the Rogue's Cunning Action feature to help them use guerrilla tactics. Another had their plan foiled by one of the players who was using their flight and mobility to outflank them, so I made a counter which let our villain drag a player character to the ground using magic if the player got across a certain height threshold. Finally, one squad member in particular was consistently targeted by the party rogue, so I made them immune to surprise, and the players were unable to gain the benefit of the hide condition when attacking them in combat. There's quite a few different possibilities you could cook up with. Worried that they'll just die and all your hard work would be for nothing? Well, fret not. I mean, it's Strahd, right? He's bound to be able to resurrect his own favourite elite vampire squad, right? Besides, deploy one or two of these guys with some minion support and they'll be sure to have enough cover to get away. Even if that's not enough though, just steal the vampire stat block's Misty Escape option if you really need it. Though, if the players well and truly have you cornered, that's okay too. It should feel impactful and meaningful when these goons finally succumb to the players' crafty antics. It's a sign of growth, and I wouldn't want to deny them that satisfaction. So that's how I made Strahd's vampires feel a lot more fearsome than their vanilla counterparts. Thank you for joining me. If this helped you, then please give this video a like. It helps a bunch. I'll be making more of these videos in the future, so make sure to stay tuned and subscribe. If you want me to cover a specific topic in a video, I'd love to know about it. Consider leaving a comment. Also, I stream on Twitch, link below if you want to talk to me live, and there's a link in my description to my socials if you want to talk to me there. That's all from me. See you next time. Cheerio.